So Mariana has been as a commissioner with the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District since I think 2010, was it? And you were reelected in 2016 and 2022. She was a president of the board for a number of years. And during her term as president, she had shared that she really worked very hard on cleaning up our waterways and also focusing on green infrastructure in ways that we can protect our lands and protect our waters. Mariana has a law degree from the University of Illinois, Chicago, and an MBA from Loyola. So she plans some great plans for the circuit courts and wants to modernize and have more transparency and more ethics involved. And we're just very excited to have her share with us tonight about a lot of things that maybe we just haven't thought that much about. So Mariana, thank you so much, and you're all set for now.
Well, thank you so much, Kathy, and I want to say hi to a committee woman, Maria Gallo, who's I see on the screen. She's been a very early supporter of mine. She's been with me from day one, and I appreciate that early confidence. You know, just in terms of politics, sometimes people see the train is, going in the right direction, so they jump on board, and some people are not brave to stand with you early, and she was. So I that cannot be overstated. So thank you, Maria. So Kathy, you've given me your instructions in terms of what I should cover. And I'll try to do that. And if I've missed something, please just sort of gently nudge me to cover. But let me tell you a little bit about myself. I know Kathy did a little intro. I'm a daughter of immigrants. My parents came over to the States, like so many other immigrants, to seek a better life. And I was raised on the south side of Chicago. My parents started a small business, like so many other immigrants, and I worked in that small business, and I learned the value of hard work and sacrifice. Parents worked 6 days a week for many decades. I appreciated everything that they did. And they stressed education. I think that they saw that, that was sort of like the leveler in society in many ways. And so they said, you got to go to school. So I got my law degree at the John Marshall Law School, which is now UIC Law. And I got an MBA at Loyola. And I started my law career as an assistant state's attorney at the Cook County State's Attorney's Office, working in night narcotics, in criminal appeals, in child support, and in the juvenile division. The nice thing about working for the state's attorney's office, although it doesn't pay you a lot of money, they do throw you in the courtroom right away, and you get that experience. That was, I'll never forget my experience there. I then went into private practice. I opened my own law office, and I did real estate, business transactions, contract work. So I've sort of seen, different sides of the law, but I've also been able to navigate a little bit through the court system, and I have an understanding of that. And I've kept my law degree active, and to do that with a lot of other professions that require licenses, I have to do 30 credit hours every 2 years in various areas of the law. So I do keep that active. I've always been interested in government. When you're a kid, I think they used to call it civics. And I did go to college in Washington, D.C. at Trinity College, where I was able to work at a think tank and on Capitol Hill. And when I came back to Chicago, eventually I ran for public office, and I ran for the Water Reclamation District. And I successfully was elected in 2010. 2016 and 2022. They're 6-year terms. And if you're wondering why we're always appearing on the ballot as MWRD commissioners, it's because it's on a rotating basis. So because there's 9 commissioners, every 2 years, 3 people are up for election, except this cycle is a little different because one of the commissioners left to become a state rep. The governor appointed someone to fill that spot. That person is appointed for the duration up to the next election. So that's why you have another individual who is running for election this cycle as well. While I've been at the district, I don't know if you recall, but back in 2010 or 2009-10, Michael Hawthorne wrote an article in the Chicago Tribune about disinfecting our waterways. It was an issue, back then, and it was one of the things that I ran on. We want to make sure that we're cleaning our waterways to a higher standard. I'm happy to say that at 2 of our plants, we do clean our water to a higher standard. We got that passed in 2011 at the Northside plant and in our Calumet plant. Proud of that. And that has improved the level of, the Chicago waterways. There's a lot of the city of Chicago has many outlets that go into the Chicago waterways, but with reference to what comes out of the district's facilities, we have been able to make that, the level of cleanliness of those waters much more meeting a higher standard, so to speak. Also, while I've been at the district, I've served as president for 2 terms. That's an internal vote. That's unlike Cook County government, where the public votes for the president. At Cook County government, at the Water Reclamation District, it's an internal vote amongst the commissioners. So I served for 2 terms as president. I've also served as chairman of finance at the Water Rec and as a pension board trustee. Yeah, so I'm the longest serving commissioner at the district currently. And I've always run on like fiscal responsibility, transparency, and protecting our environment. It's sort of like all the decisions that we make in terms of what we do, those are sort of the pillars that decision making has to go through to one degree or another. Making sure that we have a balanced budget. We do. We have a $1 billion budget. We have 2,000 employees. We have a AAA bond rating. Not a lot of government agencies can say that. In terms of the transparency component, I introduced a policy for the agency to have an independent inspector general. I introduced that policy in April of 2017. And we got it passed in 2019. It took a little bit of time to convince some people that this was the right move. I also championed the fact that we broadcast our meetings. Believe it or not, this is like a standard thing right now. But when I got there in 2010, they were not broadcasting their meetings. And that was an interesting conversation to have to make sure that the agency moved forward. But we are doing it now. So I'm happy to have pushed that. I also introduced policy where we would have veterans have more participation in terms of our contracts, veteran type companies. Also putting a cap on our legal fees was something that I introduced. I thought it was very important as an agency, as one of the largest water treatment agencies in the world, to learn from other countries in terms of what they're doing. So I did a lot of outreach with different countries. And as a result, we have signed an MOU, which a memorandum of understanding between our agency and Denmark. Proud to say that that was my initiative. And we have done an exchange in terms of engineers because, believe it or not, Denmark has a very aggressive water policy, and they're very smart in terms of water conservation. And we just renewed that MOU as well. We also did an MOU with India, and we're working on one with Thailand as well. On the local side, I was advocating for green infrastructure. And in 2010, green infrastructure was just sort of like an interesting word people were using, and I think it's become really commonplace, which is great. And we have incorporated a green infrastructure program at the Water Reclamation District. It's a program where we can help communities invest, create permeable pavement, bioswales, et cetera. That has become the norm. So I'm really excited to have done that as well. Now I'm running for clerk of the circuit court. All the while that I have been championing the green infrastructure, et cetera, I've also been an attorney. And like I said, I've kept that active. And I did start phasing out some of the work in about 2015 when I became president. People ask, well, why do we need change? Why do we need change in this office? And there are some real challenges going on in the clerk's office. Well, let me point you to a couple of media stories that you can go check out and read in further detail. But the clerk of the circuit court office is the record keeper for the court system. it's like an administrative support for the judges and the attorneys and the litigants that go through our court system. You're going to file documentation, you're going to file your paperwork for your case, and you want to make sure that that paperwork is in the right place at the right time in the right courtroom. Because if it's not, you're not going to know you have a case. You could get a default judgment against you, and that could have a big impact. And like I said, I'll give you some examples of how that's working now. There's about 1,400 employees at the clerk's office. It's a $130 million budget. And this is the office that Dorothy Brown retired from. And the current clerk was elected in 2020. She's basically running a patronage system. The Chicago Tribune wrote a story in December of 23, just of last year, outlining how much individuals in the office are pressured to make donations to her. They are used to pass petitions for her. And it's sort of, I would like to say that it's sort of something that's not said, but reports are that people are basically asked, you need to do this, otherwise you're not going to keep your job. So that's one thing. A lot of other things that go through that office. There's child support payments. There's a lot of fines and fees that go through the office. There's a lot of branch courts. If you haven't had to deal with them, there's one in Markham. There's one in Bridgeview. There's one in Maywood, Skokie, Rolling Meadows, the Daily Center. And then there's branch courts as well. Not all the employees are consolidated in one location. They're spread out, and there's an atmosphere of dysfunction and mismanagement there. And just to give you an indication, the Teamsters 700 represent about 3/4 of the employees in this office, and they're endorsing me, not the income. They don't have any confidence in the management of the office currently. There was a story that WBEZ did regarding low-level felonies. There's something called the Restorative Justice Program. And if people have low-level felonies, they can go through the Restorative Justice Program. And when they satisfy the requirements of the program, they will then have that felony wiped off of their record, and they can start, a second chance by not having that felony on their record. Well, the public defender was noticing that some of their clients had the felony still on their record after successfully going through this program. They pointed out to the clerk that this was happening. And the clerk said, that's not our responsibility. She pointed the finger to the chief judge's office and said, it's their job, not our job, to be doing that. Well, that's not true. It is the clerk's job to take the felonies off the record if that's something that's supposed to happen. Number one. Number two, if a problem is pointed out, you're supposed to take responsibility if you're running for a leadership position and sit down with the stakeholders and see how you're going to come to a resolution to help the people that you're supposed to serve. Number two, most recently, CBS did a story a couple of weeks ago on an individual who had what's called a certificate of innocence. He was wrongly convicted, and when further evidence was revealed, he was then released from jail. He had to get a certificate of innocence from the Supreme Court of Illinois, which he did. And then he moved to Wisconsin to have to start another life. He couldn't get a job because there was still a felony on his record. The clerk's office, when CBS contacted the clerk's office and said, are you aware of this? They simply sent the certificate of innocence to the reporter saying, rather than sitting down and remedying the situation. So you see a pattern here of what's going on. You need to have an inspector general. Remember, I said that I brought up the inspector general at the Water Reclamation District. We need to have an independent inspector general here at the clerk's office. The current occupant of the office says that she has an independent inspector general because the person's office is located on another floor. Well, that's not my definition of independent. If that person is reporting to you, that's not independent, because they're not going to feel free to say what is on their mind. people need to feel confident that there's not going to be repercussions or retaliation against them if they raise issues. And so it's very important to set that sort of tone in the office. And that's one of the first things that I want to do when I get into that office, is to have an independent inspector general to make sure that there's that atmosphere of openness and transparency. I think that's very important. I want to make sure that the employees have regular ethics training, but I also want to bring in a consultant to do an analysis of the office to see where there are efficiencies and where there are not, where we can use more resources. But I think it's also important for me to go in and meet all the employees, to go to where they are working, and hear what their thoughts are in terms of how we can do things better. But what they need to be more effective. Some people have told me that they've never met the clerk, and I think that that'll be, when I'm doing the inspector general as the first thing, the second thing will be going around to meet all the employees in the office so that I can hear what their concerns are, and see who are the workers and who are not the workers. Because we're also hearing that the current administration has hired a lot of friends and family, has adjusted resumes to fit the job versus finding people that are qualified for those jobs. There's a lot of money that comes through this office. There's fines and fees that are collected by the clerk's office, and they don't have a comptroller to be reconciling those accounts. You need to have that. So we need to do a forensic audit on the office to make sure that those monies are accounted for, because some of that money goes back to municipalities, and there are real challenges reconciling those numbers right now. The three pillars that I'm running on for clerk of the circuit court is that ethics and transparency, to make sure the technology is working, because pro se litigants need to find their cases online. Unless we create an app where they can be notified of their next court date, which is something that I want to look into. And I want to bring the court system to communities. In other words, go work with community groups, work with faith-based groups, set up a pop-up legal clinic with a pro se pro bono legal clinics to help people file their paperwork. Sometimes people can't get downtown or run to a courthouse. So if we bring it to communities and help them, I think that'll help people a lot more to be able to access justice. So I know that I've touched on a lot of topics. I've given you a lot of information there. Maybe I'll open it up, or Kathy, whatever your suggestion is.
One question that I have, and like some of the people that are there now, do you feel like you would be able to let them go and bring in more competent people, or do you see a big hiring process that you might have to be doing? Are you going to assess things first, or what condition is all that in?
So that's a good question, Kathy. So one of the things that the current clerk did when she came in, and I think this is more of like a political move, is she came in and she fired all of Dorothy Brown's people. I think that's a mistake. I think that there are good people there who know their job, have institutional knowledge, and are committed to serving the people. So it'll be my job and my team's job to go through the office and find those people. Who are those people? And, keep those people. And the other people, if there are some staff that are not as committed and they have problems in their, personnel file or something like that, we'll have to look at that. But I'm not going to do a unilateral firing of everybody, because I think that there are going to be good people. Maybe other staffers just need a little assistance. Maybe there's some training or resources or something, or maybe they're not in the right spot and they need to be shifted somewhere else. So we're going to have to look at that. I think that's the best approach, for the staff in the office.
Maria Gallo did share that most litigants are people who are representing themselves. So most people can't afford a lawyer in Cook County. And do they have their own unique problems in terms of accessing the court properly and knowing when they're supposed to be there and how, how to do it all?
I hear from lawyers frequently that they're not getting, let's say you're going to file your paperwork and then you should be getting a notification as to what courtroom and what day, what judge you're supposed to appear before. And some judges, some attorneys are telling me that they're not getting that information. Pro se litigants have to rely on going to, the computer system to find out whether, when their court date is. Oftentimes the computer system is down. Last May or June, I think it was down for 2 weeks. So you'd have to run down to a courthouse and try to, figure out like where your court case is if you can't figure out from the local system. It's very frustrating for pro se litigants. And, just think of how intimidating the process is in general. You're going to court. It's not necessarily a positive situation that you're dealing with. So it can make you nervous. There's maybe a lot at stake. Maybe there's a custody situation. Maybe there's a huge fine that's going to cost you money. There could be a lot of different things going on. I believe that we have a lot of work to do in terms of the technology. I did mention something earlier about creating an app where people could possibly, now keep in mind in terms of technology, there's a lot of sensitive information in files, identities, situations, et cetera, that we want to be cognizant of and protect people's identities. But I think developing some kind of notification system, because everyone's attached to their phones these days, and try to help people at least get that basic information via telephone could be a step in the right direction to help those pro se litigants.
Sure, and if we can do it for healthcare, we can do it for the court system, right? Same kind of issues around there with protecting identities. I love what you said about having pro bono help there for pro se litigants. We had a death in the extended family, and the mother didn't have custody, and the one who died was the custodial father. And the 3 kids had to be turned over to the grandparents. And it was just crazy trying to figure out how to negotiate the court system and get some kind of filing in. And none of these people had any amounts of money. And it was so hard to do, to just even figure out what kind of emergency, custody orders needed to get put in place. It was really scary. And here's 3 kids on the line. And so, I know that people are dealing with this every day, and lawyers are really, really expensive. So, kudos to you if you can get that done. That's a big one.
Yeah, and like I said, I think just the nature of the process is intimidating. A courthouse and or going to dealing with a judge or a jury or anything like that. I mean, all of that is very intimidating. And so then having to, figure out the paperwork on your own and it has a real impact, like you said. Child support payments. There's stories that child support payments are not being processed because there's some technological issue. And some people live paycheck to paycheck and they rely on those payments. Just more indication of what is going on in that office.
Linda had said maybe work with CARPLS, Carpels, the legal aid group as well. They do the self-help desks at courts to help people represent themselves. Are you familiar with that? And
CARPLS.
mm-hmm.
Let me look at the chat.
Yeah, I put the link. They run a legal aid hotline for Cook County.
Oh, yes, I have heard of it. But first, yeah, absolutely. Any partners that, want to work with us to, achieve the same goal, I'm happy to work with them.
Yeah, I have a feeling that based on what you're saying, I have a feeling that they would be very happy to work with you.
With you especially, right? Yeah.
Yeah, they obviously know far more about the problems with dealing with the clerk's office than I do on a daily basis. So,
have you worked with them before?
I actually did volunteer for them on their hotline. So, but I haven't. I've never worked the self-help desk, but I do, know the group, and I know the woman who used to be their chief, kind of fundraiser. So yeah, I really like them. They're really good people. I think that they could work with you, and in terms too of just perhaps ways of developing technology to help people, apps and other types of things, that might be something that they'd be very interested in, working with you on as well.
Thank you for bringing that up, Linda. I appreciate that.
Joyce Slavic has a couple of questions on, this was something on my mind, to multilingual staff and resources online. How are you managing, the multilingual issue in our city?
Is there multilingual staff online? Is that the question? So my understanding is there may be some, parts of the website, the clerk's website. Is that the question, or the water rec? We're talking about clerk.
Yes, uh-huh.
Okay. So they claim that they have, the opportunity for over 200 languages to be spoken to people. I don't know. I find that hard to believe, but
Maybe AI will work on that one, right? They can.
yeah, I think we have to be careful with AI. It's sort of like the door that we're intrigued by, but we got to be careful when we open it, right?
Yes.
I think that could be used for data collection. That's something so the clerk's office doesn't really do a lot of data collection, and I think they could do that. I don't know if you know that we have one of the longest felony continuances for felony trials in the United States here in Cook County, even behind LA and New York. And something that the clerks do is track why there are continuances and see what kind of patterns we're looking at. And that's sort of the AI comment has sort of prompted me to think of that. I think AI could be safely used for that kind of data analysis. If we can sort of look at that and then analyze it like 3-6 months later and see where the bottlenecks are in the system, that could go to, sharing that with the chief judge's office and say, this is what we're seeing. Is there something that we can do to remedy that, at this courthouse? Or is there a process that we could implement to try to help things up a little bit? I would like to implement that kind of data collection in terms of what kind of cases we're seeing. But my understanding is that the current office does not do data collection.
I know that a lot of us believe that just the whole computer system in any of our government offices is just far behind what's out in the private sector. And do you worry about getting the money that you're going to need in order to do more and update the computer systems and the internet and app and all that?
No, I'm not worried. I think that getting a handle on what is going on in that office will be the first step, because my belief is that no one has really looked at this office in terms of looking at it as one large apparatus. I think that what happens is people are very reactionary in the office. There's a problem here, and so we plug the hole over here. There's a problem over at this quarter, so we plug it over here, but not looking at it, as a whole. Having a strategic plan. I don't think there's ever been a strategic plan for the office. Sitting down and saying, okay, where would we like to be with these, at this courthouse? What kind of metric can we create a benchmark where we want to be after 3 months, after 6 months, and then getting the staff on board with that as well, so that we're all sort of rowing in the same direction, so to speak. So I think, when we start having a plan, then I think that it's easier then to look at how we can allocate resources.
One thing that Amy Hartso mentioned about the multilingual is they probably use a translation dial-up service to human translators. Have you ever heard of something like that? So it's a translation dial-up service. It could be.
That sounds good.
I would imagine you would be encountering a lot of people that are not very good with English coming to you. And she said libraries use that. Yeah. One thing you'd mentioned at the GPAD meeting was the restraining orders and how with computer systems being slow and maybe the office not being run efficiently, that sometimes restraining orders are held off before they become workable and problems can ensue?
Yes, protective orders in terms of, so let's say an individual has like two cases and one of the cases is dropped, but often, sometimes the clerks will make a mistake thinking that the whole case has been dropped, and so a protective order is not entered. But the other thing is having the protective order be electronically sent to the sheriff's office so it can be served on the person, instead of having like a lapse in time for that order to be entered by the clerk. I think making that a priority, because you've got the potential for danger in those kind of situations. So that's something that I'd want to look at too, to see how efficiently that system is being run.
So you're, closer to the courts than I am. I'm curious if there's any updates or feelings on how the Safety Act is working now that was recently implemented and we don't have cash bail here anymore in Illinois. And if you maybe have any comments or thoughts or news or updates on that.
Yeah, so I think there was a little bit of paperwork that was added to the process, but there's less money coming in because of the bonds, which they were having a problem anyway in terms of bonds being balanced, the finances being balanced in this office. So I think that's probably one of the bigger impacts on this office. More paperwork and less money.
Anybody else have a question, or I just feel like you've got your hands full coming up, Mariyana. Do you feel like you do? What makes
Yeah, but I have a definite idea in terms of my approach and how to get a handle on this. Like I said, I think the approach in the past has been very sort of piecemeal, sort of hodgepodge, sort of, okay, here's a problem, here's a problem. I want to look at this holistically and bring in experts. Like I said, I want to get a strategic plan. I want to get buy-in from the employees to get on board with this. I want to set the tone for ethics and transparency. I think engaging with employees is important rather than just being sort of distant from them, which is my understanding of what's going on now. Having that inspector general so that people have that opportunity to express concerns. They need to be able to have that outlet if that's something, if they see some kind of wrongdoing, they need to be able to express that. And also not accepting donations from employees. I'm not going to be doing that. I'm not going to be accepting donations from vendors at the clerk's office either. I think it sort of makes it a clean environment. Let's focus on the work and let's clean this office up. I also believe that there's, our legal system is sort of under scrutiny nationally. And if we don't have faith in our court system, then I think that could be a real problem. We say in God we trust, but I really do think that sort of people's faith in our government needs to be restored. It needs a little more support. And I want to bring some of that faith back with my approach to the clerk's office.
So you are on the ballot.
Absolutely.
You're opposing the incumbent, is that right?
Correct.
Also a woman.
Absolutely.
And so we have to make sure that you are the one that we check off and get the word out.
Yes, please.
Everybody here, we've got a great group and they're all very involved in a lot of other groups. So I just feel wonderful just listening to all that you're sharing about your own values, your own integrity. It's something that I know you will bring to, like you've brought to the water reclamation, you'll be bringing it to the court. And I'm very excited for you. let's hope you get it, right? That's the deal, huh?
Yes.
Okay.
My punch number is 92. Someone said I should find something that rhymes with that. So I say, you know what to do, punch 92.
That's good. That's good.
If you have a better one, I'm open to it.
All right. All right, Mariyana, thank you so much. We really appreciate your spending the time with us this evening.
Thank you.
And let us know if there's anything that we can do, right? You have a campaign site, website?
Yes, I do. I have citizensformariana.com.
Okay.
We've got over 130 elected officials, organizations that are supporting the campaign. I've been endorsed by the Cook County Democratic Party, the Chicago Federation of Labor, IVI, IPO, Citizen Action, Equality Illinois just endorsed us. I just had my interview with Chicago Tribune today, so we'll see how that goes. We feel really good about it. We're going to go on TV with our message soon. I'm on all social media sites, so like us on Facebook, Twitter, or X, LinkedIn, Instagram. If you'd like to, we're doing phone banking Thursdays and Saturdays. If you'd like to get involved, Maria Gallo she's been advertising it through the Palatine Dems, but please reach out. And if you would like to have a lawn sign, send us your address and it'll appear in your front yard sometime or on your porch, whatever you prefer. And tell your networks because, I have a feeling that your friends and family know that you are politically engaged, that you care about good government. And so they probably look to you for your recommendations as to who you should vote for, particularly in these, more down ballot races, not the president, but for governor, but, clerk, state's attorney, judges, et cetera. And so please tell your network, that you liked what you heard and that you think Spyropoulos will be a great change for the clerk's office.
Right.
And I think I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say, last week when we were at the meeting for GPAD, Jim McGrath had asked Mariyana if you had heard of the Illinois Code of Ethics for campaigning. And I believe Jim gave you that. And then I know letters went out because I'm involved in that group. Hopefully you've looked at the letter and you would be interested in signing the pledge where it's just what you said tonight was the truth. It's not like you were slandering anybody or you were lying. You were sharing the condition in the office. So ethically, you're saying exactly, what needs to be said for you to say, I can do better. And that's basically what we want to hear from our candidates is how can I do better? What policies will I bring that will make it better? So anyway, it's in the mail. If you'd like to look at it and sign it and send it back, we'd love that.
Absolutely. And hold us accountable. Hold your elected officials accountable.
That's right. That's right. Okay. Thank you so much. We're going to move on